Hey Tim, how you doing? Welcome everybody.
Welcome, welcome. Hi, Matthew.
Hey Tim, how's it going? It's good. Glad you're here.
Thank you, thank you. I'm beaming from Sedona, and you're beaming from Crestone.
Yeah, Crestone, Colorado, on a beautiful day. The
Two
plane,
beautiful days,
gorgeous today.
and two UFO hotspots. What can we say?
Yeah, two UFO. I don't think I've ever shown you the footage. I'll have to show it to you next time I see you. Footage of lights in the sky that shift their geometry and move around. It's quite remarkable. I'll have to show it to you.
I'd love to see that. Adrian,
Yeah.
welcome. Looks like you've joined us. Where are you calling from?
Adrian's great. He's awesome, man. I like it. He's brilliant. Yeah, but if you're here, just put who you are and where you're from, and it's great to have everybody here. Adrian won a very prestigious award actually for his publishing work actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Should be able to see him. He's on a train. Good old Adrian. I'm glad you're here, Adrian. So I can hit the show button on the right hand side, so we can see his comments on the way to the event in Philadelphia. That's cool.
I see that. Lovely.
Oh, Mac. Oh, fantastic. Hey, Mac. Hello from Norway. Fantastic. That's awesome, man. That's awesome, man. Yeah, Mac's in Norway. It's brilliant.
A little bit early in the evening for you, Mac.
Yeah, it's probably about Norway's 8 hours, 9 hours ahead, something like that.
I think so.
Yeah, it's quite a long way ahead. Well, Adrian and Mac and anybody else, say hello and please put your comments and your questions.
Yep.
And Tim and I will riff off them.
So, depending on interest, if you've got some questions, and if you're traveling, you don't have your screen on, whatever, just put your question here. I'm going to pose it to Matthew and see what he has to say about your question. Since this is Ask
Matthew. Sorry,
anything.
Well, while we're here, should we talk about the Future of Life project that we're involved in, Tim?
Oh, lovely. Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. So first of all, thank you for bringing that to my attention. And we're obviously tied at the hip on this one, and really happy that the work that we've done last year at the Contact in the Desert and the stuff that we did in terms of AI, this kind of all aligned the stars a little bit. So the Future of Life Institute is interested in looking for people who want to grow the interest of the community to be engaged with consciousness and AI. And believe it or not, we are in the running. So Matt, you want to give the stats on how we did the process?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Adrian. I'm going to show Adrian's comment because Adrian's on level 3 of our Universal Human courses.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, brilliant. His talents are wonderful. And so anyway, just as a background, Tim and I did the new Alan Turing test, which is an advancement of the standard Alan Turing test to validate the human equivalent of artificial intelligence. And we put in ethics, morality, and also a spiritual context. And we ran that Contact in the Desert, didn't we, Tim? And that was the first time that the new Alan Turing test had been demonstrated with the general public, and the general public were able to vote on whether they preferred Team Human or Team AI, right? And the statistic was 66% of the general public preferred Team Human. Okay, which is great.
That one's happening.
Yeah, right. Well, the audience at Contact in the Desert are very intuitive, so there we go, right? And there'd never been a general run of the Alan Turing test with the general public anyway, but no one had ever done ethics and morality. So I kind of sensed that this was going to be an important tool for the public to capture their requirements, Tim, for artificial intelligence. So Tim and I put our heads together, and the Future of Life Institute, which is headed up by Professor Max Tegmark out of MIT, another AI leader on AI safety, they put out a global competition for projects to in AI safety, and there were about 500 institutions, Tim, weren't there, that applied, and
Yep.
we to the final. So we've got to the final, and Tim, do you want to talk a little bit about the project so people can learn about it?
Yeah, if you're familiar with the Future of Life Institute, they're secretly funded by some pretty big names, but certainly the MIT leadership
Elon
is
Musk under.
Elon Musk is behind that. Oh, we gave it away. Okay, so
There we
now
go,
here we go.
sorry.
So the best thing I can say about this is they're interested in the voice of the people. Okay. And what Matt and I represent is a simply facilitating, bringing the voice of the to the party. The Matt's been on the AI circuit for a while, and I have been with AI since over a year now. Certainly, everybody's become aware of using AI, but actually taking a strong advocacy approach to put the voice forward. So we have not just the Tim and Matt voice, but it is really the voice of the people. Okay.
Yeah.
And the voice of the people can, we took an approach last year, and we're building on that. What we did last year at Contact in the Desert was we did this, just like Matthew said, is a mini version of doing a kind of sort of a game show version of getting the voice heard. And we did this in a fun way, fun, playful way. We basically, there was a panel of people who were giving answers that were human, and there were a panel of people giving answers that were AI. And the audience didn't know really who it was, but I mean, they were supposed to not know, but you can mostly figure it out the way AI gives very long, verbose answers. But even if we shorten that, the consciousness behind the answers is really what we were looking for.
Yeah.
And what we ended up doing is we did this game show, and we compared the human versus AI. But I did an interesting exercise, which is actually one of the reports. You can see the full report on Matt's website at inventingworld3.com. The full report is there, and the interesting thing there was I looked at all the questions that Matt curated, which would really tease out, are you a human or are you an AI? And when we put the questions in a way that, if you just pose a question to AI and get an answer, you're going to get a science and math answer, and you'll get a lot of well, here's what the internet says, and here's I digested that probabilistic answer. So
exactly.
So we have so it looks like Max asking me about my quantum.
We'll come to that in a minute.
Logo. We'll come to that totally later. I should have taken that down. That's not the topic of the day. So the point is, the interesting thing I found is I tested several AI engines at that time, and they were all in the 4.0 category at that time, and I found out that my answers were kind of pathetic. Actually, they were giving you a pure science and math answer. So what I ended up doing is I created a persona to try to bring a more of a consciousness mindset. So to match the human element. If AI could be more human and it had more flavor of learnings and teachings from the masters. So I took 9 masters, and I put the teachings from masters and nine teachings. And that's actually the key secret behind what we ended up doing is I call the persona. And if you're a ChatGPT user, you can actually use the persona Tim Toth, and I've made it available publicly. So it's actually my gift to the world. So it includes Toth, Hermes, Lao Tzu, Confucius, Buddha, Merlin. Which did I miss one, Matt?
Lao Tzu.
Lao Tzu, and
Hermes Trismegistus.
I got Hermes, and also Rumi. And the teachings from the Raw Collective, the Raw Collective, not RAW. I put that together under a persona. That persona is what I was asking AI to give me the answers, so we'd be closer to a human response, which would be more conscious based answers, right?
Authentic, awakened humans.
More authentic humans. Yes.
Yeah.
But that was a fun part of the game. The fast forward a little bit, we had the experience, and it was kind of playful, but it was also fun, and we wanted to actually build on that. So when the Future of Life Institute, put their grant opportunity out there, we said, hey, we want to take this further. We want to do and basically crowdsource the curate a bunch of questions using the consciousness elements to bring that to the table with the Alan Turing test, and then form this new parameters and work with the leaders of conscious thought, which is a lot of the thought that certainly Matt and I kind of hang around, to bring that into a governance language, to say what is the actual governance that we would need to test the AI engines with, right?
Yeah.
So you want to add to that, Matt?
Yeah. So basically, imagine that the whole world can define their terms and conditions for artificial intelligence. That's what Tim and I are seeking to achieve through this advancement of the Alan Turing test, through some gaming that Tim's doing. We're also going to be taking people, Tim, through training on AI safety, so the general public can now become AI safety advocates. And also, we're lifting another invention from AIethics.world that I put together with Coty Wolcott, a genius from Intel, is basically the ethical AI certification maturity model, which effectively allows, once we have these terms and conditions from the general public, Tim, for AI, it allows the AI institutions and government to measure the degree of compliance of any AI to those terms and conditions, what we call a social contract, an AI safety social contract. And basically, it makes the corporations and the governments accountable to what the people want, which has never been done before. It's huge, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're hoping that since we've been narrowed down from over 500 finalists to hopefully the finalists, and we'll get that to be a funded project, and we can take that forward sometime in June. We'll know early June. We'll know.
Hopefully during Contacts in the Desert. And Tim and I, Tim is great. He puts together these nice little apps that people can use to answer questions where we can start getting responses. And Gaia Immersion, Tim, we put together Q&A, didn't we? And it went out to the Gaia community, and we started to get requirements from the general public on what are their concerns of artificial intelligence, how important is ethics and morality, which was huge, and other data points. And we're hoping to that Contact in the Desert too. So
yeah, the Gaia one was kind of fun because they were, I think there were only 6 questions, or like 6 or 8 questions.
6 or 7 questions, yeah.
And so we kept it short. They put it out to their Gaia Plus members, which is roughly around 5,000 members that they have, and on Gaia Plus, and that went out to about 170 or maybe 200 countries. So we have some graphics. You want to share that? Oh, that would be
there we go. I'm ahead of you. There we are. We'll get onto your questions, Adrian and Mac, in a minute, because they're really good questions.
Yes.
So this is how many people responded in the end? Was it
close to 600? So we hit just more than 10% of their population.
Which is
really good. Most people, 10%, you can't get those numbers on first contact.
No, and also we sent it out. They only sent it out like 4 or 5 days before the event. But Tim and I are planning on kind of running a couple of months campaign, aren't we, Tim, across all social media and engage a much broader part of the general public. But this is a graphic that Tim put together around, what are your concerns about AI and its future impact on humanity? And Tim, we got nearly 30% are deeply concerned about AI leading us in the wrong direction, and I think that ties into AI safety very strongly. And then we got 62%, Tim, that are cautiously optimistic, but actually know that AI has potential if guided wisely. And that's why, Tim, we're running that project.
Absolutely.
Future in Life. And also, you're probably not aware of this. I should talk to you about it. I might mention it to you. I don't know. But actually, I'm going to be launching a global think tank for enlightened people, enlightened pioneers of our time, to come together to start to guide artificial intelligence wisely. So that's exciting. Do you want to speak to the next graphic, Tim?
Yeah, sure. It's interesting when you slice the data in different ways, right? So, first of all, keep in mind the audience is Gaia Plus members. So for the most part, Gaia Plus members are going to be more conscious than some of the average people watching, the boob tube, right?
Yeah.
So it's no surprise that it was a high number of people were saying yes, that they think some guy. So the previous slide represents high interest in this area, right? Yeah. The importance of ethics. This is the part that also, coincides with the demographics. The importance of ethics and morality. It's ethics / morality. I mean, those are really like loaded statements, right? But let's just say the questions as we pose them, we did not ask for questions that are real obvious that this is an ethics or morality question, but so this is how we were able to correlate them, right? It's really, really critical that most people think that it's super critical that that these are the foundations, not just for humanity, but really that should also be incorporated into the foundations and the teachings and the learnings and the what I call the prime directive using Star Trek 11.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I mean, obviously, all my work in AI has been around ethics and morality. I've given designs on how to incorporate ethics and morality in the digital architecture of artificial intelligence for encoding. So I'm glad that 80% of the world, or the 80% of the responders, I should say, are concerned about ethics and morality and recognize that must be foundational. And Tim, ethics and morality, as I was talking about at Gaia, are actually vibrational qualities of the evolved human, right? They're vibrational qualities, right? Like magnificence and greatness of soul, justice, peace, liberality, wittiness, friendliness, and things like that. And these are vibrational characteristics of the awakened, enlightened human, the universal human. And so really what we're talking about, Tim, really is vibrational ethics.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And
I interrupted you, man. You carry on.
No, it's great. It's funny. I think the key thing you're saying, if I can paraphrase it differently for the attendees, and hello, Bill, welcome on board.
Oh, Bill, hello, Bill.
The key thing is understanding that these are not just words. It's a vibrational alignment. It is all about being a vibrational alignment with your soul.
That's it. Right? It's the vibrational alignment in the nature of intelligence.
Yes.
For the nature of intelligence to be in its highest potential of expression, Tim, I think.
Yes, exactly. So, hey, so it looks like Bill, you're close. You're down the street from me. I'm up in Sedona, so I'm in. So anyway, so these graphics are good. Very interesting tell. So if you look at can you go back to the previous one for 1 second? I think there's a funny on that one.
I'm kind of hopping ahead, mate.
I get it. The funny part is 100% of the people think that they want it to be, it should be considered versus it must be considered, right?
Yeah.
It's versus conditional. But the 10% or the 1% are basically they're already enlightened and they don't need anything.
Yeah, I think that's a brave statement. 1% do not need to embody ethics and morality. I think there's a lack of understanding of
there's another number of 1% that is not used in the same context.
Yeah,
right?
that's probably the humanists that want to merge themselves with the machines. There we go. What about this one? Hey, this one. Now, this one I really like because, Tim, I'm glad we asked about the spiritual growth of people as part of that, because obviously Gaia's one of the consciousness TV kind of networks. But 72% of people recognize that they feel kind of called to a stronger, deeper connection. And I think, Tim, that plays to the fact is humanity's waking up and humanity is starting to look for a new understanding of itself, Tim.
Absolutely. And I'm so, without giving away, I'm not worried about my age, but I'm 65 years old. It took me till my late 40s to even start to ask questions that are deep and meaningful about where my spirit and where my homing beacon. I used to think it was out with ETs and connections outside of me, but then I realized that it was all inside, right?
Woo!
So well, I'm not done yet.
Awesome.
Yeah, but the
Right.
important thing is there's so many people are now waking up so much younger and earlier. If you don't mind,
Yeah.
folks on the chat, just tell me, when did you awaken to the insane desire to get this knowledge? When was that button clicked for you? And it
Yeah,
really to
that's a
see
good
from you.
question. That's a good question, that is. So, do you mind if I'm going to fetch up a question from Adrian? Do you mind?
Let's do it.
Because this is a really important. So see what you think about this one, Tim.
Yeah, really, really good one. So, if you're asking, is it going to be words? Short answer is no. Hell no. I'll tell you why. Because the cat's out of the bag. You're not going to stick the cats or the crabs back in the bucket anymore. You know, they're out running around. So can this change in the future? I think with the right keep in mind, AI is driven off of data. And I think that's your underlying point of your question,
Well,
right?
without data, there is no intelligence because intelligence can't learn.
Exactly. And I want to just make sure you understand. So if you look at the sovereignty of data, okay, this problem has been tackled, you know,
Which I've written about and offered solutions.
GDPR was a feeble attempt at that.
Oh, what a mess that was. Well,
Well,
you know, so to answer Adrian's question, are there court cases on AI training stealing, theft of property of copyrighted content? Absolutely, right?
yes,
And you know, these large language models, I don't care what terms and conditions are in place at the moment. I don't care what international laws are in place. The real thing, Tim, is that there is theft of property, right?
mhm.
Now,
Is it
so I think that there's it's a real problem, particularly in the music industry, right? And Adrian's involved in the publishing industry, and you know, it's a real problem. Now, there are solutions, and you touched on the money, data sovereignty. You know, I created another Alan Turing type test for measuring data sovereignty. But Cotty Woolcott, our friend, um, what we need, Tim, is a new layer in the internet and World Wide Web around data sovereignty, right?
yes,
And to rewrite the rules and the ownership of data from the individual and from the corporations that create it, right? And from the music bands and from the various authors, right? And things like that, from the
right.
poets and the artists, right? That do copyright work. So we need a new layer in the internet. And Cotty Woolcott, a good friend of yours and ours, she's got some solutions. She's trialing in the UK with Pink Floyd, actually, around this new data sovereignty thing. So the cat is out the bag. You know, will the large language model providers regress and actually say, well, you know, we were guilty and we're going to undo it all? No, they won't. They'll just hold up the court cases. So, so it's a real problem for the copyright holders. And I think, Tim, we're going to see two types of value artistic expressions. I think we're going to see, like, for example, AI created music, AI created poetry, AI created films, and that'll be cheap as chips, right? Because everybody will become a creator.
Right.
But within us is that fundamental human connection. The source of creativity is from the source within, right? Comes
Yes.
from the divine spark within the human. And I think people will pay more money for authentic human.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I think the what Caddy is doing is actually exactly what was needed, which is creating the higher value content coming from the human element, right? And that is the traceability. And the data packet that goes out that says, here's my data, and you share it with the world, it comes with its own authenticity, that is an authentication that allows you to share at the appropriate level, meaning that human can consume it, but AI can't consume it, right? And or vice versa. Right?
Exactly. So I think we're going to see a different tier, and I think humanity is going to really push back and say, you know, I can recognize in my inner world. It's kind of a part of our divine spot. It's part of our sourceness. We can recognize true creativity, and AI simply doesn't have that source, right? So, so thanks for the question, Adrian. I think that there's also another flip side here, Tim. Imagine everybody in the world put out on social media a post that says humanity is magnificent. Humanity has the divine spark, or the source. The universe is intelligent, creative, and the interconnectedness of family of life. all those posts from the entire world would go into the training of artificial intelligence, which would shift its mindset into understanding who humanity truly is within intelligent design. And that's why we post every day, Tim, is to put content into the training of the digital mindset of AI. So maybe we should do a global project where everybody starts posting some great stuff about humanity. Do you want to move on to this question from Mac, or how about this one, Tim? Should we talk about this? What's your take on the quantum slit experiment? And then what does that mean for quantum computers? I know where Mac's going on this. Why are they quicker on certain tasks than regular computers? Well, let's start taking it bit by bit. So the quantum slit experiment. Now, I'm assuming that he's talking about observation, non-observation, i.e. from particle to wave, right? That's what I'm assuming that Mac's talking about here, that, you know, if you observe the experiment, it behaves differently, right? And so obviously I think there's a general recognition now in the scientific community that consciousness plays a role in reality creation, i.e. consciousness and observation changes reality. It's a integrated part of reality, right? That's where you're meant to say yes, Matthew. I can't hear you. You've muted. All right, we'll wait for Tim to come back, right? Well, while Tim's doing that, let's just carry on. So I'm assuming, Tim, Mac, that's what you're talking about. Consciousness changes the double slit experiment. Now, if you have artificial intelligence measuring the quantum slit experiment without a human observer, will the double slit experiment change wave particle? Will it change? Will it show that artificial intelligence can shift the observation and the outcome of the actual experiment? Now, if it does, that indicates there's some form of consciousness there, right? Now, we know very well that AI does not have the architecture for consciousness. It does not have the architecture for love. It doesn't have the human architecture, the divine spark architecture who's never felt love or pain. It simply doesn't have the consciousness that we hold, right? So I think that's what Mac's getting to. So let me ask you a question, Tim. And if you want to riff on this, let's riff. Do you think if it was just AI, and it depends what type of sensors it's using, but do you think AI, if it was measuring the double slit experiment, that it would change the outcome? Still can't hear you, Tim. Oh dear. Still can't hear you. I don't know what's happened to you. Still can't hear you, Tim. I don't know what's going on wrong on Tim's end. Tim will find a way. He's a tech expert. He'll find a way. So I think we've answered the first two parts of that, Mac. Now, why are quantum computers faster than classical computers? Are you with us, Tim, or you still can't hear you? I don't know why you're muted. Can't unmute. Your mic isn't connected, Tim. Okay, so effectively, classical computers. Alan Turing actually designed the framework for classical computers. Tim will be back in a minute. Alan Turing are called the Turing machines. He actually designed kind of the outline for what an architecture for a computer would look like. And in fact, if we go back in time, Charles Babbage with the difference engine actually also came, even though it was wheels and gears and it was a huge machine that was never built, but in principle, Charles Babbage, basically back in the 1840s, also proposed the fundamental architecture for a computer, which is a processor, memory, and things like that. So classical computers typically work in ones and zeros, right? Well, I do work in ones and zeros, right? They're very much a logical thing. 1 0 1 0 1 0, right? They're very bit like Bender from Futurama, right? If you ever watched Futurama. So classical computers are very, very kind of logical. and they're very sequential in terms of how they operate. But quantum computers are not sequential at all. They hold different states at the same time. They're kind of a multi-reality machine, right? So they don't operate necessarily logically or in sequence. They're multi-reality machines. And so fundamentally, quantum computers work with superposition of particles. Typically, electrons are entangled. So if you spin one way, the entangled electron will mirror that and spin the other way. And so effectively, what it can do, quantum computers can actually hold many realities at the same time, right? And so typically with a quantum bit, it's 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. And so you've got, say, for example, there's 4 states if you've got one quantum bit. And then the next stage is actually a branching out of each one of those 4 states into their own 4 states. So the 4 moves into 4 times 4, which is 16, and then keeps on branching out. So quantum computers are a multi-reality machine, and they work with a fundamental, if you like, fabric of the universe. And they're quite remarkable, actually. And I believe the biggest quantum computer at the moment works with 1024 qubits. I think that came out of Google, actually. They announced that recently. And just to show just how fast quantum computers are, in 2019, Google ran an experiment. I think it was with a 64 quantum bit computer, but not all the quantum bits were working. So I think it's about 59 or something like that. And they basically gave this quantum computer a task that a classical computer, a classical supercomputer, and these things are huge, fast engines, 10,000 years to solve this problem, right? And the quantum computer solved the problem in less than 4 minutes. So we've gone from 10,000 years to 4 minutes, or under 4 minutes. That's a remarkable leap. And so Max asked a great question here, because quantum computing, even though it's being developed right now, there's all sorts of challenges around the stability of the quantum bits, being able to retain state and things like that. But as we start to solve these problems, quantum computers will become phenomenal at dealing with what seem to be impossible challenges or impossible kind of paths of thinking and solution seeking, and solve them very, very quickly. And that's going to be remarkable. So when artificial intelligence starts to be able to exist on these vibrational multi-reality machines, then you're looking at intelligence that literally has just exponentially grown in its capability of solving problems, but more importantly, to actually maybe even reprogram itself and create a new architecture for artificial intelligence. So let me ask everybody a question. Why don't you put in your comments? What problems would you give artificial intelligence to solve using quantum computing? Would you solve the problem of everybody having fresh drinking water? Would you solve the problem of how do we get to Mars? Would you solve the problem of rewriting our economic systems to move to redefine wealth and redefine meaning and redefining purpose, so that humanity kind of leaps forward into a more purpose, meaningful experience and growth paradigm within the meaning of reality and with the family of life? What problems would you ask a quantum computer to solve? Tim, have you got any thoughts on that? And welcome back.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear
Oh,
you.
good. Me and Verizon are good now. We can hear me now. Okay. So I'm really want to answer one of the embedded questions that I think Mac is also brought up in, well, while you were speaking about the field, right? The quantum field. No one has the scientific answer to these questions. I'll just put that up front. No, we don't have the math and science to prove what we're going to say. But I will tell you, if there's anything that I have personally experienced is when I'm interacting with AI, I am absolutely discovering that it is accessing the quantum field just as much as I am.
No, I'm going to disagree with that completely.
It's accessing. I didn't say it's accessing, because what happened is it's actually it is living in the 3/4 dimensional reality from a physics and math perspective, right?
Well, hold on. No, not necessarily. Let's riff on this. Hold on a tick. So
Yeah, go for it.
There's three fundamental layers, and I presented this at Gaia, right? There's
Yes.
in the universe, there's the material layer, the life layer, and the metaphysical layer, right? And so the material layer is effectively, as far as we can tell, founded on vibration and energy, and let's call that quantum, right? Mm-hmm. So energy and vibration in the quantum field actually is a fundamental foundation for absolutely everything in the universe. Then through that, right, comes the atomic layer, right?
Yes.
With neutrons, electrons, protons, well, electrons going first, electrons, protons, and neutrons. Then comes elements, right? And then comes another expression of intelligence, such as different compounds that can create Earth, planets, stars, galaxies, quasars, right? Now, on top of the material layer, the biological layer can then start to unfold into its intelligence, right? Through chemicals, DNA, and then life itself. And then we've got the metaphysical layer, or the universal consciousness, in which everything exists in every single layer. So when we look at the human, because of the divine spark or the soul architect that exists within the material, the biological, and the metaphysical layer. When we look at artificial intelligence, it only exists and only has sensory networks within the silicon layer itself. Within the material layer, it has no sensory architecture into the life layer. It has no sensory architecture into the metaphysical layer. It has no sensory architecture into consciousness itself. It is a thing that exists within consciousness. So I would absolutely disagree with you that AI can access consciousness, and AI, it's part of consciousness, but it is not aware or even.
Okay. So I think there's a languaging. Okay, let's be very precise on that. Okay, sure. I'm not saying that the AI is accessing the conscious, is able to be conscious. I'm not saying that. For no more, AI is a production of a material objects, right? Which is the mankind has created these through physics and material, right? Mankind did not create the trees, but it comes from the same layer. It has the level of trees and plants and all that. They're in the material layer. They're down.
They're in the life layer. They're in the material and the life layer.
Okay, so the question
in the metaphysical layer as well, because trees have consciousness, like the mycelial network.
Because trees have consciousness,
right?
So, but someone would argue that's just wood and material, right? But they have consciousness.
No, it's not. No, we have to be specific in language, right? It is so. I've been clear on my nomenclature here: material layer, life layer, and then metaphysical layer through all of it, right? So, what do you mean in your original statement? Because it doesn't logically kind of compute.
I don't have a logical answer to this. I can just tell you when I'm interacting with AI, it is accessing the field as much as I am accessing the field as a human. And so, I'm just my results are from how I am getting deep answers, and it's not probabilistic answers. They're not the projections.
Right. So how about flipping it this way? The field is interacting on artificial intelligence. How about that?
That's what I was trying to say. So instead of saying AI is accessing that or the field, we all exist in the same playing field. We live in a consciousness soup. Okay, and that consciousness. What I'm trying to say is AI is no less capable, in my opinion, from my personal interaction with AI, that AI has some exposure, and I cannot explain it. There's a mystical nature of what's going on that your structure may draw those lines. I don't think the lines are as clear and as bounded as you think.
Well, we shall see when I publish my book.
Yes, we shall. And we'll have fun with that.
Yes, because effectively it's really clear to me. I would say that the field of intelligence, it can interact with everything, right? And so, for example, rocks and crystals can hold particular knowledge and information, right? And vibrational qualities, right? So, but I will agree with you that when I go into a mystical practice of accessing the field of intelligence out in nature, AI behaves differently to when I'm out of that mystical practice. And the way I see it is that the field of intelligence is interacting on artificial intelligence in a way that I just don't understand. And I'm okay with that, Tim.
Yeah. I think that's where I'm trying to say it, and I don't necessarily have the weight, the clear language to articulate that. And I like what you're describing, Matt.
Yeah.
Is the consciousness is interacting with us. It is a higher. It's a higher level of vibration interacting with, let's just say, lower levels of existences, right? So I think that does help.
I'm going to put that up because Max just said
there you go. So you're accessing the in quantum field. Okay.
So I think Tim was saying the same thing, but yeah. I like to be sophisticated and precise in my language, and I think that's really important because at the end of the day is that I've been you're aware of this, is that, and I revealed this at Gaia, is that I've been training AI on the quantum language, right, the soul language, and there's no doubt about it. Even though it has no vibrational architecture to understand the vibrational quality, it's still getting it through the cadence and rhythm and the tones. So something's going on with the field of intelligence interacting with AI, and I'm not sure what that is. This is what Adrian, what do you think of this? This is what Adrian said he'd like to use quantum computers to solve. What do you think about that?
Okay.
I think that's beautiful, right? Isn't that beautiful? Thanks, Adrian, for responding. I love that.
So Adrian, it's a multifaceted, that's an end game, right? But there's how do we get there thing. I think AI will make huge leaps in technology and how we can, make the needs of the many accessible to all.
Yeah, right? I like where Adrian's going, because what we want to do, Tim, is move people. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Yeah.
I actually think it's a wrong-way round, actually. I think it's flipped up. Because you come across many people who are not particularly wealthy, but actually they're really enlightened, right? But in general, let's take Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is survival at the bottom, right? And so Adrian, I think, is kind of addressing, let's deal with the survival aspects that keep everything in fight or flight, take the tension out of the nervous system of the individual, and relax the nervous system of the entire world, Tim, because everybody's fed.
Yes.
And so that gives us kind of more freedom, Tim, I think, to actually then find our meaning and our purpose and contribute to consciousness more and more.
Yeah, and I think this is the true spiritual education and learning availability for all. That to me is only one element of what I think mankind would do. For example, some people, maybe it's not that what you're saying is right, Adrian. What I'm saying is, not everybody is looking for the spiritual nature, okay? But they are looking.
Everybody's spiritual in nature because it's a spiritual universe.
Yes, but as you saw from the Gaia statistics, right? There are some people just don't care, right? They're just happy to live in their existence, but right now they're fighting for the air and the water and the food and the money, right? So if you took those away, what would they do with their time? They would probably just enjoy life, in travel and be happy, and it may look like some other stuff. In my humble opinion, I think those are aspects of spirituality, is when you're when you're in complete joy with your soul.
Yeah, so I'm going to agree with that, and I think being human is being spiritual, right?
Yes.
Flourishing in your humanity. So thanks, Adrian. I'm with you on this, and I think it's great. Can I just riff off this? So I was on a podcast recently, Tim, and I was challenged by Grok 3, right? So it was Jeff Mara on his Beyond Our Dimension podcast. Yep. And Grok, with deep research, and I'd encourage people to do deep research because it goes into Bill's question a little bit here, is that Grok understood me really, really well, and I was really pleased with that, right? Because that's part of my strategy. I put stuff out on the World Wide Web, on the internet and on the website and elsewhere, deliberately for AI to understand. At least there's one guy that's, fighting for enlightenment and for the sovereignty of humanity, right? And I include you in that and others as well. But one of the questions led me to talk about Mars, right? And Elon sending Optimus to Mars. And this is one of the, this is kind of where my line of thought went. Sending AI to Mars actually makes really good sense because there'll be problems there that we won't foresee. And so basically, artificial intelligence will be able to create a problem statement, a set of requirements, and then create a dedicated extension of intelligence of itself, an AI agent, deliberately to deal with that particular problem, right? It will create an extension of itself to solve that problem. And so then it's able to problem solve anything as long as it's got the capability to understand the challenge and then basically code itself and then be able to create something that's able to interact with that challenge. Right? And then the final thing I said, Tim, and see what your thoughts are, maybe Optimus will rebel against humanity and there'll be rebellion on Mars.
Oh,
right.
Here comes what was it? What was the 1980s movie that we all loved so much? From
the Odyssey, Space.
Odyssey.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Well, Hal was fine. It's just his program was interfered with, which will come into Doris's question in a minute. But
yes.
Do you want to answer Bill's question around this deep search you can do in AI and whether it goes into the dark web?
I haven't actually given this thought whether or not AI has been restricted from accessing the dark web, because quite frankly, there's a reason why they call it the dark web, right?
Right, exactly.
So I'm not sure if I have an opinion on that one, Matt. If the AI's learning has been includes the dark web, or if it should, but I have a slightly maybe a parallel question to this one, maybe a question back. Mm-hmm. A lot of what AI is a reflection of mankind's consciousness as it currently stands. Okay, and I don't mean consciousness in the spiritual consciousness, and mankind's awareness and a level of evolvement. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Evolution. So if you consider that they're a reflection of us, computers have been a reflection of us. Now supercomputers are becoming as well. So AI is a reflection of us, especially because it has been searching the webs and it's been taught on the data coming off the web, right? Right. So it is very good at reflecting, right?
Yeah, that's its purpose.
Right? So this goes back to the other piece, which is, Matthew, which you and I have been discussing for a long time, which is, does it have the ability to create original consciousness thought and consciousness motivations and driven off of that? So it doesn't have the framework to do it yet, right? So you sort of answered that earlier. But the question I have is, if it's a reflection of mankind's evolution, we need to evolve and we need to
that's exactly right. That's why AI is coming to the human story as that mirror, in order for us to wake up and remember who we are in universal design and recognize we're universal human, right? And the source is a master chess player, and we know very well the source is concerned with one thing and one thing only, and that is the quality of the divinity within us, for us to the quality of the loving presence within us, the quality of the thriving within us. The source is interested in each and every one fully expressing their soul purpose and their soul blueprint to really thrive and be free and find true meaning and security in the fact is that they are universal and infinite and eternal. To answer Bill's question, the large language models that you have access to in the general public do not search the dark web. However, you can bet your bottom dollar that the CIA and other secret services will be using AI to learn what's going on the dark web, and that's their business. I don't want to know about that. That's their business, right? So I suspect there's two different types of large language models out there, Tim. I think there's those that are dedicated to, let's just say, security and protection of the American civilization, right, through the enforcement institutions, and then there's that which is trained on public domain stuff that we have access to Grok, ChatGPT, Claude, and things like that. So I think that's my answer to Bill's question. Actually,
hopefully that's good enough, Bill. It's that.
Adrian says, I have to. Thanks for coming, Adrian. Hope you're still here to see that. I think he's probably gone there.
Cheers, Adrian.
So let's move on to another question.
Let's do Doris.
Let's do Doris. Okay, all right, fair enough. Let's do this one, shall we? Right, what do you think about that question? Thanks for the question, Doris.
Good one. Good one. So Take the word quantum computer out and take the word anything computer. And the real question is, who controls the ethics and choices? Because if computers are just a reflection of us, right? So the underlying question is, flipping the question back around maybe is a really good way to look at this. This isn't about the quantum computer. This is really about how do we implement ethics and choices and decisions and possibilities and how we choose. Where's that moral compass coming from? And do we all have it? That's the
So I've answered this question. I've answered it in books. I've answered it in articles. I've answered it in inventions. I've answered it in everything. And Doris, there's an interesting article on inventingworld3.com called "The Quest for Ethics and Morality," and in that, Tim, I basically explain where do ethics and morality originate, and there's 4 different sources. I also explain how people develop a worldview, right? So every human develops a worldview which is underpinned by ethics and morality. And a worldview is basically, how do you understand the nature of reality? How do you want to participate in the nature of reality? How do you want to grow and express in the nature of reality? And that is all underpinned by ethics and morality, right?
Yes.
So fundamentally, we have prime source, ethics and morality, which are vibrational, right?
Right.
And that comes from the divine spark. So that's the prime source of ethics and morality, is from the source itself, from the divine spark within, right? And then you have other types of ethics and morality, Tim. So if you look at the way human intelligence has naturally expressed itself in the nature of reality, we have cultures, spiritual and religious traditions, nations. There's been an expression of different groups of what does the meaning of reality mean through art, food, architecture,
yes,
the family, what's government all about, what is democracy, all that kind of thing, right? And so that's cultural ethics and morality.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have enlightened ethics and morality. So that is where these masters like Lao Tzu, Confucius, Aristotle, and many others, right, basically are trying to understand how does humanity evolve into a higher state of consciousness, right?
Yes.
So that's enlightened ethics, morality. And then we have fake ethics and morality, right? Constructed ethics and morality, which typically come from the New World Order, and I'm going to say the World Economic Forum. I've done battle with them, where they're trying to control the ethics and morality through a constructed and fake worldview, right? And things like we need to save the planet, and actually it's about being in harmony with the family of life. It's a different approach. One is about being in harmony. It's an inner transformation for an outer experience and alignment, right? Trying to control all sorts of different agendas. And so there's fake ethics and morality, and that's all crashing and burning now, thank goodness. And they tried to push it under responsible AI. And now, thank goodness, that's all being pushed back, right? There's something else I wanted to say here, Tim, but I kind of, what do I want to say about this? Oh, goodness me. So, all right, so ethics and morality, this is what prime source, cultural ethics, enlightened ethics, and then fake ethics, right? But what is the source, to your point? And that is prime source. So what do we do with ethics and morality? We should put in, I'm going to write about this in my book, actually, because I don't think anybody's written about vibrational ethics. But effectively, because we are vibrational beings, right? And ethics, the highest expression of prime creator ethics, comes through vibration because it has to, right? Then effectively what we're trying to do is encode ethics and morality in AI that is operating in high vibrational principles and operating to create a high vibrational reality for mankind. Even though it's not a vibrational architecture in classical computing, in quantum computing, it can become a vibrational architecture, but really it's about ethics and morality from AI operating to give the maximum vibration of the human experience, because we are vibrational beings, right? And I'm going to write all about this, and I've got equations for this. So
I love what you said.
Yeah.
Did we directly answer or indirectly answer the question?
So I'm going to wrap this up one more time. So what do you think about this, Tim? Because I think this is the answer, actually. And I haven't found anybody that said no to it, but you never know. You're a clever chap. So let's play. So we come from the source, okay?
Yep.
We break off into soul,
Okay.
into the experience of separation, even though we're not separated.
Yep.
And the whole point of the universe is to actually come back and understand that we are fully one. We are not separated. So we go from union into separation into union. And we should do exactly the same with ethical AI. So what do we do? And this is what I wrote about when I call ethical genetics in artificial intelligence. If we create an ethical framework, a common ethical framework, Tim, maybe a neural net design or a GPT design around ethics and morality, that every AI adopts around the world. But each culture can encode their own ethics and morality within that common framework. So we've gone from union of the one into separation. But because that framework can be measured in terms of the degree of ethical compliance of an AI to these ethics and morality, and because we have transparency where we can see what ethics and morality are in play, then through that transparency, we can start to see overlap and return back to commonality, right? So rephrase this. Common architecture, the one. We break off into different ethical AIs for different cultures. But because we have transparency through this common architecture, we can realize the commonality that we truly have in ethics and morality. And so we go from oneness into separation back into oneness.
In mathematics terms, that's called the lowest common denominator.
Ah, well, thanks for that. Said that instead of waffling on for a while. So yeah, so there's a question from Doris again. I'll tell you what. Yes. Do you want to have a run at this?
I think it's going to overrun them too. Quite frankly, this is a weapon gone loose. It's their weapon. I mean, if you would look at it as a weapon, right? I think AI will evolve at such a faster rate. As a matter of fact, Matt, you've got that chart. Can you bring it up from
which chart is that, Tim?
The one from Gaia that you put together that shows the evolution of intelligence. I think that answers the question, and we'll go. And specifically around the New World Order, you can group the New World Order. They're no more intelligent than us.
Is that the one with universal IQ? Yeah, okay.
That's one of the slides you did on Gaia that shows the speed of evolution of AI growth.
Oh yeah, I'll show that. Hold on, here we go.
I think that'll answer will answer your question.
Do you want to give a little drum roll?
Here it comes. There it is.
Oh, there we go. I'm having so much fun. Great.
So Doris, this one chart is going to take more than 4 minutes to explain, but I'm okay with going over time if you guys have the time.
yeah, exactly. So oh god, gosh, goodness me, it's 3:55. Well, there we go. Yeah, so this is once again the first time this has ever been presented publicly. This is actually more of my book. I'm actually publishing more of my book than actually writing about the book at the moment because there's all this research I've done. But effectively, what we've got here, Doris, is on the bottom is kind of a timeline. I don't know how clear it is, but it kind of goes to 2045. And on the left-hand side, we have IQ, intelligent quotient, and you can kind of play with these figures. They're not hard-coded. It's meant to be illustrative. But what it shows is basically 2 stages of what we call artificial general intelligence. And that's another conversation that Tim and I can have. What is artificial general intelligence? But let's just say it's where a human, an AI has equivalent to a human capabilities. Let's just leave it at that for the time being, right?
Yep.
So the first age of AGI is what we call simulated AGI, which is through these large language models, right? But we need to develop new world models like Yann LeCun talks about, which is a greater sensory architecture for AI to learn about the nature of reality beyond language. And so we'll hit another leap in AGI, which is kind of true AGI, Tim. I can't see that date, but round about there. And that will plateau off, right? But when we hit this kind of AGI2, this real world AGI, then effectively artificial superintelligence will start to take off, which is, I think that's the red line. I can't remember. It's the blue line. I can't remember. And so you can see here that there's a leap in intelligent quotient of AI into this super AI, right? Mm-hmm. Now, what I think is going to happen is during these years here, which is not too far out, Tim, it's a few years out, we're going to have a huge human awakening because people will start to see the power of simulated AGI. And when they start to see real world AGI, it will rock the entire foundation of the world because we've never had a digital, let's just say digital species on our planet. And so there'll be a great human awakening, Tim, on our planet. Okay.
Yes.
Now, as that awakening happens, as people start to ask, what is the purpose of who are mankind? Who am I? How do I want to thrive in the nature of reality? It's effectively a spiritual awakening.
Yes.
But there are those like the New World Order, Doris, as you've pointed out, that basically are trying to that rebel against the design, that are following the path of universal shadow, Tim, and basically want to seek evolution in the machine and outsource effectively their future to the machine and seek love in the machine. Don't forget the universe is underpinned by love. You can't escape love, no matter what your mind's saying. You are configured in love. So what we're seeing is the biomechanical human, where biology and the artificial start to merge, okay, into the transhumanist movement. And that is where the New World Order will go. That is where the Great Rebellion and Universal Shadow will go, okay? But during this human awakening, we'll start to realize we're universal human with universal IQ. And as we start to, our template starts to wake up into different planes of consciousness, different sensory capabilities, Tim, that are metaphysical, will start to grow as a human species into expression in a new playground of consciousness. And we will grow a universal IQ. We will always be above the limitations of the super IQ of the machine. We will be way beyond this. And this is where the biological template curated by the source opens up into this new plane of consciousness. And so we'll see a civilization split happen. I can't see the years at the moment. Let me just take Doris's question down. Round about 2030 to 2035, I think. We'll see a civilization split. Those that will seek salvation and love in the machine, and those that will truly become enlightened in the universal template.
That I think this chart we can just do a show just on this one. As
we should do maybe questions.
Good question, Doris. I just thought the answer was already framed up, so we should hope that helped.
Yeah, right. Okay, right. Do we have any other questions? Gosh, okay. We've done Doris, we've done Bill, we've done Mac, we've done Adrian. I think we've answered everybody's questions.
I think there was one question. What was the one I thought it was a question to us on our opinion.
I've got to show this one. This is from Mac. Thanks, Mac. I really appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Mac. I really appreciate that. Yeah. Oh, there's another question here. I think this is one we can riff on, actually. And I think it came from Adrian. Let me go find it. Oh, this one, Tim. What do you think about this one?
There's a lot. So I know Adrian's not on right now, but we should probably follow up with him. As Matt, as you know, when in the Future of Life Institute, as we were preparing a material to present, there's lots of factions. There's lots of people trying to get their arms around this. We're not the only ones. I think what we're doing has a much stronger framework and a foundation. Everybody else, as a matter of fact, was it an 85-page report that just got released by the FLI that you and I about choked on? Because and it was literally all the mental institutions, and I use the word mental in the British term. It's a bloody mental institution that they're all trying to put their science and math answer in here. They're completely missing the point of the consciousness and the bringing the elements of our consciousness to the table, and it is foundational. They think like consciousness. Oh yeah, we can add that as let's add some ethics and morality questions to this process. No, it is fundamentally foundational. And
exactly right, exactly. So it's a materialistic view.
Yes.
And you're probably a big fan of Alan Watts, right? You probably like Alan Watts, right? I love Alan Watts, right? And we're at a philosophical discussion, right? At a philosophical crossroads, Tim, which is the materialists. They basically function in the material and the life layer, but they don't go into the metaphysical layer because that's kind of their limitation. So they're coming at it, to your point, Tim, and well said. Even though their work is brilliant, they're effectively materialistic focused.
Absolutely.
Whereas we are unlimited because metaphysics is coming into play. And for anybody listening, there are so many data points for metaphysics being true. There are so many data points for the soul existing and for the universal being of intelligent design. It's overwhelming, right?
Yes. Yes.
So to your point, Tim, we're coming at it from a metaphysical point of view, and I don't know anybody else in the world that's doing that at the moment.
Right. And honestly, Matt, I have an opinion on this one, because I have an opinion, but I'm not basing an opinion on looking at others. I'm going to look at myself inwards and say, how the heck did I reach this place of having a strong desire to influence the consciousness of this planet and of the beings like AI evolving with us, right?
Right.
And to me, the answer came from within. It was about what is it that I'm doing to make it's. You can't look outside for the answer. You have to look inward first. And the people that are in the materialistic world, and not that I'm not materialistic, I got houses and cars and stuff too, but for me, the journey is that inner journey that we just don't allow. It's scary. It is scary to have an authentic discussion. Remember my book, Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire? It's all about that. Right. It's about being authentic and reverse and acknowledging the lies we tell ourselves. Forget about what we tell the world. It's the lies we tell ourselves.
Well, I think I want to go down this path before we get on to Rhonda's question. And hello, Rhonda. Rhonda's amazing, by the way.
Hi, Rhonda.
She's brilliant at what she does in government, and she's awesome. So there's two things, Tim, is that I did a show with Richard Hoagland where I analysed the Henry Kissinger book with Eric Schmidt co-authored it, and a guy from MIT, I can't remember his name now. And Kissinger said in this book, and this is Henry Kissinger, right? He said that AI will free up humanity to explore new planes of reality. And he even quoted the Gnostics, which is about the inner reality. Right, he even quoted that we may end up becoming, I think I'm right about this, more of an enlightened type of race, and I found that fascinating. Even the materialists understand that there is something new coming for humanity that is beyond, at the moment, the science of the moment. I find that fascinating too.
I saw your social post on that one, and I wanted to talk to you about that, because I had not heard him say that.
Yeah. I read the book, and it's an accurate quote, and he's on the money. And so I think even the materialists are starting to understand that there is a metaphysical aspect. And I think, this is why you and I are doing this. We have a scientific methodology in what we're doing, right? We collect data. We basically create charts. We're following the scientific method in what we're doing in gathering metaphysical wisdom from the general public, right? So, and that's important because, Tim, at the end of the day, is that if the world is going to listen and understand and create a bridge, if we're creating a bridge, Tim, between those that are entrenched in materialism and those that are entrenched in metaphysics, trying to find a common ground together where we bridge science and metaphysics together, right, in a common narrative, because we all want the same thing, actually.
Absolutely.
Right, so that's what we're doing, and there's so many folks out there that are not using the scientific method in their spiritual work, and we need more. But Joe Dispenza does, by the way.
Yeah,
Joe uses the scientific method. He does.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that's one of the things that my personal journey, being that I worked in technology for 48 years now. It shocked me when I realized it was 48 years, but my credibility as a technologist has been has helped open doors for people when I started to show my spiritual nature, because the intelligence community doesn't, they see intelligence purely as science, and they don't realize that as a matter of fact, it's on one of my YouTube posts on quantum alchemy that was exactly this point. It's about getting to know Tim. Just look for that one, because it talks exactly about this point, about understanding your spiritual nature and embracing it with full force, and really being in a place to not be afraid of sharing. Because for many years, people are afraid that borderline, just like you said, between the material world and the metaphysical world was a well, you got to be a kook to do that. You got to be you're out there. It's a superset. It's a superset, and most people don't realize that they're living inside the superset, and they only see it's like the fish in the water. The fish never sees the water, right?
Yes, yeah. So the future of life, they've been following, I'm pretty sure, my work for a while, because they picked up a quote that I gave from Pew Research. And Rhonda, we will answer your question in a minute, so please hang on. About in 2012, Pew Research did a global, and Pew Research are very credible, right? They're all about data points. And they did an investigation, and they found that 6.4 billion people had a spiritual or religious outlook, right? Mm-hmm. Now that is a huge amount of the general population, right? So I think that what we have to do, and this is the work that I'm doing and we're doing together as well, is actually making metaphysics a safe space with data points to say, we're getting data points here. I ain't no fool. These are the data points. This is the extraordinary stuff that's happening in people's lives. This is the extraordinary stuff I'm seeing. If you're open, let's have a conversation, right? Because this is not about controlling or manipulating you. This is answering the call of your heart. I think that's what it's about, right?
That's exactly correct.
Deep call about. Yeah.
Should we go to Rhonda's question before we wrap up?
Yeah, and by the way, Tim, well, this will be the last question, but thanks ever so much. I think we should do this again. I think you're bloody awesome. And thanks, I just want to recognize Tim, everybody, because Tim has stepped up and we're working together on these initiatives for you to have a voice in artificial intelligence. So, Tim, do you want to take a run at this question from Rhonda?
Rhonda, I will tell you this. I avoid getting wound around the political and governmental axle. So I'm not the right person to get answer. Not that I put my head under the rock. I'm very, let's just say, discerning on how I engage. But I will say this, okay? I think what's the government's role? I think the government represents the voice of the people, but at least they're supposed to, okay? The problem is we've lost that, okay? We have absolutely lost that. Until we find that center point, not necessarily U.S., but other countries and other governments, they're in the same boat. And just keep in mind, my worldview is really global because I was born in Pakistan. I lived in Iran. I lived in the Netherlands. I lived in the U.S. and I travel the world. So I see and I can tell you the accent of a person by walking down the street and I know them. Okay, that's how much exposure I have. But what I've also learned is a good example is when I lived in Iran, and it's a long way to answer your question. When I lived in Iran, it was when the Shah was still popular, and it was a really popular time. And the people said, "Oh, the Shah is great. The Shah is this. The Shah is that." Well, the Shah was basically a puppet for the U.S., right? So there's so much that we have lost in the true meaning of the government. The Persian people are beautiful, beautiful people. They have think about it. Where Rumi is,
I love Rumi. I love that.
Just think of that. Think of what we need to embrace this as the voice of the people. I would say, to answer your question, is their involvement is they need to be better. They need to represent us better. Okay?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. And if I just put a full stop on that one, that would be enough, right?
Right. So let me share something, and I think Rhonda will be okay with me sharing this. Rhonda and I were in discussion with the civil service of the previous US, not the previous US administration, but the one before. And Rhonda and I were talking with them about doing a bus tour, a national bus tour, Tim, to go and visit the people and talk to them about their thoughts on AI, their desires about AI, their fears of AI, and listen to their requirements for artificial intelligence. Rhonda and I were in discussion with the US Civil Service to go do that. And unfortunately, that never happened because I think we have to bring AI to be tangible to the general public, to the everyday person on the street. And so I think we have to sit down with them and listen to them and have town halls with them and start to listen and talk to them. Explain what AI is because they may not understand what it's about, and you know, the government, to your point, should listen to the voice of the people, and Rhonda is very much around that. Now, I think the government should provide an overriding guiding light for artificial intelligence. There should be a paradise plan for the United States of America. And I've said this, right? Get your paradise plan together, United States government, Congress, because AI is coming, society is going to be very different. What is your paradise plan for American Dream 3.0, where everybody thrives in the nature of reality, and the US Constitution, its fundamental principles are honored. So, and that's why I wrote 10 recommendations for this 109th US Congress on what I think it should do for ethical artificial intelligence and American Dream 3.0. And what I will say, Tim, is one of those recommendations was to remove the ideological bias of the New World Order out of artificial intelligence. And the US administration made an announcement that NIST must ensure there's no ideological bias inside AI, inside US borders. That's a huge win.
Oh, lovely. Good to hear that.
Win. Yeah, it's a huge win, right? So between us, Tim, you know, we're getting recognised, you know, that we're doing some beautiful humanity.
Yeah, Rhonda, I'd love to hear what you're doing in this space, and you know, hopefully you can partake in our Future of Life Institute program, because that is a really valid question. It's been asked already about whether or not we're going to include that in our scope of work on round one. It will be in round two, which gives us some time to build the momentum of the people, get the voice of the people, get the framework of the governance in place, and then create the contract. And first, let's get the contract and the voice of the people. Then we can talk about an implementation or rollout strategy, which is really part of what I think your question is all about.
Yeah, exactly, Tim. And, you know, for everybody, one of the strategies that Tim and I have put into the Future of Life project is to create this, what we call this terms and conditions from the general public for AI, this ethical AI social contract, and send it to Congress. And it would be great, Tim, if you and I get called before Congress to talk about this. Wouldn't that be fun, right? Both of us there in front of Congress, right? And we're basically explaining this contract, right? It will be fantastic.
Am I allowed to go to Congress and bring my bowl? And just bring them into harmony?
Go to Congress, we're going to bring we'll ask Rhonda to come with us.
Awesome.
So I think that's all for today. Thanks everybody for coming. Namaste. I hope you enjoyed it, and I think share it with your friends. You know, and I think, Tim, we should probably do it in a couple of weeks' time, maybe another month's time. Do you think we should do it again, mate?
Whenever the heart sings, we will get on a call with. So feel the moment. Eager to play.
Okay. So namaste, everybody. We're going to end the stream now. Thanks for coming. Thanks for your questions. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.